Alright, so today we're going to go over the word problems. Alright? The ADA states that the handicap ramp must be built with a 1 to 12 ratio. That is, for every 1 unit of rise, it must run 12 units. To meet these compliance requirements, what must the length of the ramp be to be rise 4.5 feet? Alright? So my rise is 4.5, which is 4.5. The ratio being 1 to 12 means that in the triangle, whatever that length is, that's 12x, or 12 times it. So I can take the 4.5 and multiply by 12, and I get 54. From there, I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. 4.5 squared plus 54 squared equals the hypotenuse squared. Alright, that comes out to be 2936.25. And then my last move is a square root. And I get 54.18 for my hypotenuse, approximately. Now, once it rounded to the nearest inch, alright, so the 54 feet goes away, because that's part of my final answer. Alright, so in the calculator, I just do minus the 54, it gives me the decimal. Then you multiply that by the conversion rate. There's 12 inches in a foot, so I multiply by 12, and I get 2.24, which is closer to 2 than 3. So my final answer is 54 feet, 2 inches. Alright, now technically, just like when we did the problem the other day, it should be 54 feet, 3 inches. Because if I round down, okay, it's going to be too small. It's going to be illegal. So this is another situation where you have to always round appropriately. Be aware of that before the quiz on Tuesday. Alright, next up, the longer leg of a right triangle is 3 more than 3 times the shorter leg. So my shorter leg is x. My longer leg is 3 more than 3 times that. And my hypotenuse is 3 less than 4 times that. So when I set up Pythagorean theorem, it's x squared plus 3x plus 3 squared equals the hypotenuse squared, which is 4x minus 3. I'm now going to square the binomial as x squared plus 9x squared plus 18x plus 9 equals 16x squared minus 24x plus 9. The 9's cancel out. This is going to give me 10x squared plus 18x equals 16x squared minus 24x. Alright, when I subtract the 10x squared from both sides, and then subtract the 18x from both sides, 6x squared minus 42x equals 0. I'll pull out a 6x, leaving me with x minus 7. Whenever I have a binomial, it's not a difference of 2 squares, I'm going to pull out a GCF. That gives me 2 solutions, 0, which comes from the 6x, and 7, which comes from the x minus 7. When I plug 0 into the hypotenuse, I get negative 3. So that's our old friend, the extraneous solution. So that leaves me with 7. That makes that one 7. This one 24. And this one 25. 2 Viking ships leave the same place at the same time. One goes north 12 kilometers and then east 6 kilometers. The other goes south 10 kilometers and west 7 kilometers. At this point, how far apart are they? Now, what we're going to assume is they form a straight line. So the first one goes north 12. So that's 12. And then east 6. So that's that way. So that's 6. The other one goes south 10 and west 7. We're going to assume that they're a straight line distance away from each other. Alright, and if we do that, we're going to do 7 squared, which is 49, 10 squared, which is 100, and add them. So that becomes 149. Of course, we do the square root. 12 squared is 144, 6 squared is 36, 144 plus 36 is 180, so that's the square root of 180. So now I'm going to do the square root of 149 plus the square root of 180. Alright, I go to my calculator, I do the square root of 149 plus the square root of 180, oops, second square root 149 plus second square root of 180, and I get 25.6. Says around the nearest tenth place, so 25.6 kilometers. Later in the year, when we do similar figures, you'll see how we can prove that that actually would be a straight path. All right, now, what is the longest pole that can be placed in the box with dimensions 6 inches by 4 inches by 2 feet? Round to the nearest inch appropriately. All right, appropriately means you always round down, as opposed to the ramp problem where you round up. With this one, you round down. So, here's my box. And there's the longest pole. And then I draw in the hypotenuse on the ground. 2 feet. 2 times 12 is 24 inches. I can put the 4 inches and the 6 inches. I can put any of them anywhere I want. Alright? So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the hypotenuse on the floor using Pythagorean theorem. 24 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. Alright? 24 squared plus 4 squared. 592 equals c squared. Square root of 592 equals 6. That means this is the square root of 592 and I'm not doing anything else with it. So now I'm going to do this triangle and I'm going to call that D since we're dealing with 3 dimensions. So the square root of 592 squared plus 6 squared equals D squared. When I square a square root, they cancel out, giving us 592 plus 36 equals D squared. 592 plus 36 is 628 equals D squared. And then my last step, just like in the last step, was do a square root. And I get 25.05. Alright. Fortunately for this one, the closest inch is 25. So my final answer is 25 inches. If it was 25.6, it would still be 25 inches. So remember from the other day, you always round down. Now, if we try this, b squared equals a squared plus b squared plus c squared. Alright, so this is what we're going to call the 3D Pythagorean theorem formula. You can make these dimensions anything you want. 24 squared plus 4 squared plus 6 squared. 24 squared is 576. 4 squared is 16. 6 squared is 36. If I add them up, I get 628. Alright? And that makes that the square root. You will notice your 2 answers end up being exactly the same. So if you want to use that formula for this type of problem moving forward, certainly you can. Alright, the back. The base of a 100-foot ladder lies 28 feet from the base of the wall it lies on. So we got a ladder that's 100 feet long. The distance between their bases is 28. Alright, so then we're going to use Pythagorean theorem for the triples. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. That comes out to be 96, that height on the wall. The ladder then slides down. Well, the ladder doesn't change in length, so that's still 100. But it started at 96 and slides down 16, so that's 80. So we're going to use Pythagorean theorem again. We're going to end up with 60. It asks how far does the base of the ladder slide away from the wall. So here's where the base of the ladder is. It was originally 28, it's now 60. 60 take away 28 gives us our answer, which is 32. Notice, it is not the same. Alright? It is not the same. Okay, next up. Jack drives his car for 30 minutes west at a speed of 25 kilometers per hour. Alright? So 30 minutes is half an hour, so that's 12.5. He then drives south for 45 minutes at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour. So that would be 30, because 3/4 of 40 is 30. Alright? His sister Jill leaves at the same time and flies her balloon in the straight path. So I can use Pythagorean theorem. 12.5 squared plus 30 squared. That's 1056.25. Square root of that is 32.5. Okay. So she goes 32.5 miles. All right. In an hour and 15 minutes. Jack goes 42.5 miles in 1.25 minutes. So now I'm going to divide each one by 1.25. So she goes 26 miles per hour. And he goes 34 miles per hour. So actually, Jack goes faster by 8 miles per hour. Alright, so make sure you can use speed, distance over time. 3 cities lie in places that form a right triangle. A and C are the furthest apart, 24 kilometers from each other. Alright, so they're the furthest apart, so that must be the hypotenuse. I'm going to put B here. I'm going to say it's 10 kilometers apart. To the nearest 10th place, how far apart are cities A and B? So we're trying to figure that side out. So I'm going to do 10 squared plus B squared equals 24 squared. B squared equals 576 when we're done working with that. B is the square root of 576. I get 20, no. 10 squared plus B squared, this should be square root of 476. I forgot to subtract the 100. So the square root of 476 is approximately 21.8. So those two cities are 21.8 kilometers apart. So they have to the 10th place. Finally, a 50-foot tree is struck by lightning, causing its tip to fall 40 feet from its base. So there's its base, there's its tip after it's been struck by lightning, and that's 40 feet. How high up did the lightning strike? That's our unknown we're trying to find. The part that's still standing and the part that's tipped over is the original height of the tree, so that's 50. Take away x. Now I'm going to set up Pythagorean theorem. X squared plus 40 squared equals 50 minus x squared. X squared plus 1600 equals 2500 minus 100x plus x squared. The x squareds cancel out. We're in luck. It's not a quadratic. So this ends up being negative 900 equals negative 100x. And x equals 9. So that's how high up the tree is struck. All right. I hope it helps. Best of luck for the quiz on Tuesday.